In 1989, Japan's stock market reached a value larger than the entire US market. Real estate prices in Tokyo soared so high that the land beneath the Imperial Palace was worth more than the entire state of California. And then, everything collapsed. Almost 80% wiped out, never to recover. But the truth behind Japan's economic collapse is far stranger and far more relevant than most people realize. Because Japan didn't fall due to a normal recession. It fell because of a silent structural mistake that built for decades. A mistake that the United States may be repeating right now. To understand Japan's lost decades, we must step into the hidden world of the 1980s. A world of booming exports, soaring corporate profits, and national confidence that felt unstoppable. Japan was not just succeeding, it was dominating. Sony, Toyota, Panasonic. Their products reshaped global markets. Schools taught Japanese business culture. Books predicted America would become a second-rate power. Inside Japan, the mood was euphoric. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. A quiet interplay between government ministries, powerful banks, and the Bank of Japan created a system built on easy credit. Loans flowed freely. Corporations borrowed aggressively to buy land, stocks, and entire companies abroad. Money felt infinite. Risk felt irrelevant. And behind closed doors, policymakers reassured themselves they could control it all. They believed they had built a perfect economy, one that could never collapse. They were wrong. The first signs of danger appeared quietly. Small spikes in asset prices, unusual growth in corporate debt, banks lending far beyond safe ratios, warnings from a handful of economists who saw the bubble forming. But those warnings were ignored. After all, Japan was winning. Exports were booming. Companies were acquiring U.S. landmarks like Rockefeller Center. The yen was strong. Stock prices were unstoppable. The public believed the good times were permanent. Politicians believed they had mastered the business cycle. And bankers believed real estate could never fall. Behind the facade of perfection, insiders saw cracks forming. Cracks that hinted at unsustainable credit growth, inflated valuations, and a property market that no longer reflected reality. Still, those cracks were dismissed. Japan was too powerful to fail. Its system too well managed. Its institutions too disciplined. But confidence is often strongest right before collapse. Then came the chain reaction, the three blows that ended Japan's miracle. The first mistake, artificially cheap money. Throughout the mid-1980s, the Bank of Japan kept interest rates extremely low to stimulate growth after the Plaza Accord. Cheap credit poured into land speculation. Every inch of Tokyo felt like gold. Corporations borrowed billions against inflated assets. This was the moment when the bubble began expanding uncontrollably. The second shock. The rate hikes. Realizing the bubble had grown too large, the Bank of Japan raised interest rates. Slowly at first, then aggressively. This shift was the turning point. The cost of money increased. Speculation became expensive. And suddenly, highly leveraged investors couldn't keep up. It was like removing oxygen from a fire. The third and final blow, the property collapse. When property prices began to fall, confidence evaporated. Companies couldn't refinance loans. Banks were left holding land worth a fraction of its loan value. Stock prices tumbled. Debt defaults surged. By 1992, the boom years were over. The bubble that took a decade to inflate burst in less than 2. Japan expected a short recession. Instead, it entered a period of stagnation that continues to this day. This is where everything snapped. Bankruptcies multiplied. Families saw wealth evaporate. Corporations slashed investment. Land prices continued falling year after year, dragging the economy down with them. Banks hid their losses, refusing to recognize bad loans. Zombie companies, firms too weak to survive but too interconnected to fail, began consuming credit like black holes. The government launched stimulus after stimulus. Nothing worked. The Bank of Japan cut interest rates to near zero. Still, growth refused to return. Japan had entered a deflationary spiral, a trap where falling prices discouraged spending and low spending slowed the economy further. The lost decade became 2, then 3. Japan, once considered unstoppable, became a cautionary tale. The story was not about a single crash, but about the slow, suffocating collapse of confidence in an entire system. And here's the frightening part. The same pattern that destroyed Japan is now appearing in the United States. Ultra-low interest rates for over a decade, high corporate leverage, asset inflation in real estate, tech, and equities, households taking on record debt, a generation of investors who have never seen prolonged deflation. The U.S. is now experiencing the early warning signs Japan ignored. Credit dependence, overvalued assets, a sudden tightening cycle, falling consumer confidence, stretched corporate valuations, banks exposed to rate shocks. Japan believed it was immune. America believes the same. History suggests otherwise. And Japan's lost decades were only the beginning. To understand what truly happens when money collapses, we must go back to the most terrifying inflation in history. A collapse so violent that people were paid twice a day because their salaries lost value by lunchtime. A warning from the past and a blueprint for the future. Click on the next episode. Weimar Hyperinflation, the blueprint for modern crisis.